today we're going to talk about the DAT.
The notorious DAT.
Yeah, big portion of the application process, probably the biggest, right?
I think
it
so.
holds the most weight, I think, with
in your application.
Yeah, just because like it levels the playing field across all different undergraduate programs.
Right. Your GPA from one school compared to another can be completely different. But I mean, you guys have all been through it. If you're going to college, you've taken the ACT or the SAT, except for some people this year didn't have to.
Really?
Yeah, which is interesting. Like Dave was saying, this score, every student that's going to dental school is taking this test, so it's really apples to apples for them. That's the only way that they can look at us all evenly.
And something that I talked to one of the admissions people here, and they said that it's a good indication of how students are going to do on national boards as well.
Yeah.
So it's just something that gives them a little bit more of insurance of how you will be in dental school. So if you can get a good DAT score, then you're kind of home free if you have the GPA and the coursework, right? Like at least we'll hopefully get you your foot in the door and give you a better opportunity of having an interview.
Definitely. We're not going to go into the breakdown of the test or anything like that. We'll drop a link for you guys in the comments or description below, just so you can go in and you can see.
There's going to be a link somewhere.
All that, yeah. Well, maybe right here. Or, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean. Yeah, we don't even have to talk about the deets. We're just going to talk about how you prepare and the actual test day, the importance of it, right?
Some resources and everything
totally.
like that.
So I guess I'll start off, at least my experience with like how long do you study, what do you study, and things like that. For me, I actually took the DAT a little later. I think, like, for the most part, a lot of people try to take it like May, June, maybe even before that.
Well, because the application opens usually in June,
May.
right? Oh, May?
Well,
yeah, it's been a few years.
So then, like, April, right? Like, or even like February, March, April.
I think I took mine in March, I'm pretty sure.
I took mine in November, so mine was late for sure. But I talked to my individual programs I applied to, and I just let them know, like, hey, I'm going to take it just because like how the timing was with me graduating undergrad and like finishing OChem and different like classes that were included on the DAT. And they're like, yeah, that's late. We would recommend being earlier, but like we'll still take your score.
That's nice.
Which was great. So yeah, for looks like February, March, April is probably the window, just because then applications start in May, like late May, early June. But I planned a month to study. Maybe a month and a half, but that's all I did. I went to the library every day. I probably put at least 8 hours a day studying, but it's different for everyone. Like there's a couple of our classmates where it's like they say an absurd amount, like that's less than anyone I've ever heard. It's like a week that they studied, or people are like doing half a year studying.
Yeah, that's me.
It kind of just depends on what your confidence level is and like how efficient really you are.
So what I did, because I studied for several months, like super full time, probably for like 2 months. But I hired a tutor. Shout out Braden Crump. Because like I just didn't know where to start and I was intimidated by it, and I felt that personally I needed more time to be prepared and to get a good score. So knowing yourself is really important, and just trying to determine like, am I the kind of person that I really remember everything from my undergrad coursework, I'm going to be good, like I can spend a few weeks on this and be ready to go? Or do you need the review time? Do you want to have the confidence going through a lot of practice tests, etc.? So what about for you, Kyle?
Yeah, I spent about 2 weeks studying for mine, so I was one of the outliers there. And I would say really your undergrad material is going to be so helpful, and I think that's why I was able to just spend 2 weeks and do well on the DAT, is because I really tried hard to do well and remember the things in my classes that I took. So the OCHEMs, the biologies, the anatomies, those classes are going to be huge for the DAT. Everything that you learn in those classes is going to come right back into play in the DAT. So
don't just be studying for the final. Study for long term.
Study hard.
And then after you take boards, it's gone.
Just kidding. That's right.
And if you're looking into taking the DAT, you've probably already done like the due diligence of knowing what's on the DAT and kind of probably dabbling in some of the resources that are there, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
some practice exams, there's YouTube videos, there's things like that can help you prepare in, hand in hand with the courses that we take
Right.
in our undergrad. But at least for me, like some of the things that I used were a lot of videos. Like I used, granted, we were talking about this before we started recording. Like we took the DAT like 6 years ago, so it was a while.
4 or 5? I don't know, but
A lot of years.
yeah, several years ago.
And it was like 5 years.
Doesn't matter.
2017. 2017.
But like I still think that some of these resources, at least that I use, it's like that's probably pretty useful. Like some of the
Yeah.
videos that are on YouTube, I guarantee there's probably more. There's new content, but it's
Right.
teaching all the same things and probably just different tricks.
Well, the test hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Right? Like
So-
the topics.
No, totally. So I think mostly like for me when I was studying was more kind of just like how to navigate the test. Like I think if for me at least, freaking out about the like, okay, what's on it and all of that was like, there's no way that I was going to feel like just comfortable. Like, oh, I know everything under the sun about biology, organic
Yeah.
chemistry. But for me, it was like, okay, I need to know the timing. I need to know the amount of questions. I need to know the like different tricks for like perceptual ability, things like that. So if I were you guys, I would just be, surfing the web, trying to get as much like of the like resources that you can and
Right.
things that work for you. So like what worked for me were videos, and there's different also programs where you pay X amount of money that can give you a study schedule and kind of push you through like a system of how to study with a certain timeline.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say just being familiar with the format of the test is just going to make you comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look up how much time you have a mental note of how much time per question do I have, kind of like a schedule. It's almost like a race, right? Like a lot of people go into big races, like a bike race. On your stem, like you put, I want to be at this place at this time, and you want to have that mentally for the DAT, because you can lose track of time and spend too much time on like a math question, and that's going to hurt your score more than anything, because to be honest, like you probably know the answers to a lot of them. So kind of having that preparation is also super important. And you can only get good at that by taking practice tests, right? Like you can have your plan, but luckily there's tons of practice tests that you can really take seriously as if it's the real test, and use those strategies and those plans and the roadmap kind of that you have for yourself, and keep trying that out until you feel comfortable with it. It just sucks because the test takes like an entire day, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of days.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think the full length tests, those practice tests, you can find them online. Definitely go to that link that we're putting in the description. That'll give you a good breakdown of timing, and then just practice. Really, I think I took close to 10 or 15 practice tests before I took the actual exam. So, I mean, for me that was really helpful. I really liked any program that gives you practice questions and then has a description with them. That was super helpful for me. So I'd take a test, and then I'd answer the questions, and then if I got it wrong, it would have a description of the correct answer, why it's correct, everything like that, and
Right.
that really helped me to solidify a lot of those answers that I needed.
Right. So I'm sure like Kaplan practice tests probably have that. I think like if you get access to a private tutor, they're going to have stuff like that. I think one of the best ones was DAT Bootcamp. They have a lot of practice tests with great explanations and videos. I spent most of my time with DAT Bootcamp, and I couldn't recommend that more.
And that was the one that kind of gave you, at least for me, like they give you a schedule like
Yeah.
that, like
And
worked for
resources.
resources. There's just a lot of things that it
Right.
gave you, and I think for us, I think we all agree that at least when we were studying, like that was probably the most common resource that like
Yeah.
our peers were taking or going through as well.
We're not sponsored to say this stuff, so we're just be giving like our honest
Yeah.
opinion. I think that that's like an easy spend for me, and I also felt that the people at DAT Bootcamp were like helpful if I had questions. Their user experience was really nice, is affordable.
Yeah,
So
I'd emphasize, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money studying for the DAT.
yeah, it's important.
It's necessary.
for sure.
No, totally.
So-
And for us, like we, I think enjoyed DAT boot camp so much that like when we were making, the outline and planning these videos out, we actually reached out to Ari from DAT boot camp. Which, if you sign up for DAT boot camp, you get emails from him almost on the daily. And so, like a lot of people know who Ari is. And
Ari
we just
from DAT boot camp.
yeah, we just reached out and we just wanted to talk to him about kind of what his desire was in creating this resource, because at least for me, I thought it was the key for me to do well on the DAT. So it was funny, we got him on the phone and it was almost talking to like someone who's just like done so good for, I just felt like I owed him because like
every dental student's like Ari.
Yes, because he got me through. And we have like a recording of our phone call where he talks about the importance of the DAT and how much like that single instance in our life or in our route to becoming a dentist, how the DAT is just pinnacle point. So let's take a listen to hear kind of what he has to say.
I was in my junior year, between like junior and senior year, and I was like, I had to take the DAT, to go to dental school. And I remember like the first thing I did was I went to the website, I downloaded the sample test, sample DAT test. I had no idea what's on it. I remember just like scrolling through some of the questions, and I see like they're asking questions about like echinodermata. I'm not sure how to pronounce. I never had to pronounce that word out loud. I only had to read it. But like, just asking questions about like plants and like just every corner of like biology was being asked. And then I got the general chemistry, organic chemistry, and I was like feeling like so overwhelmed that I was like, oh my god, like these were hard classes by themselves. There were like 6 hard classes by themselves, and now they're going to cram this into like one final. And then I got to the PhD section, which I had no idea existed, and I was like, I'm not even sure what they want me to do with this. And I kept scrolling, and I was like, I remember just feeling this dread. It's like this feeling of like this. It was like this mountain that like you had to climb, and it would just be like absolutely impossible. But like I knew that like other people, take this test every year. They do well. I knew all my role models, all the dentists I've spoken to have taken the DAT. They must have done well. They got on with their lives. So there's a way to do well on it. And like the number one thing I did, I think helped me, and this is like, there's a lot of ways to do well on the DAT. And I always recommend students know how they study best. Like if you made it this far in college, what works for you, so you should do that. But the number one thing I would definitely say is definitely make a day-by-day study schedule. I think that's like the only universal advice I could say, that like even if you're studying for a week, or like you're studying for like 6 months, make a day-by-day study schedule. That's the first thing I did. So I printed out like 3 sheets, like 3 months worth of like the calendar view on like my Mac or whatever. And I filled in like every box with like, all right, well, I guess like on the first week, I'll do this chapter of biology. And then I'll do these practice questions. I just kind of like mapped it out, and I was like, okay, this is about like 5 hours of work a day. And I felt like if I do all this and I get to the end of this like 90-day study schedule that I built for myself, or 70-day study schedule I built for myself, like I should be ready to tackle this mountain, right? Mm-hmm. And I followed it every day. And sometimes I would like step back and like I would go back and look at like DAT sample tests, and I see these questions that I haven't even gotten to yet. And I'm like, I start like panicking again. I'm like, oh my god, this is impossible. Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to learn all this stuff. But then you just focus back in. You go take it one day at a time. You put like a red X once you get through all the day's tasks, and like you just ignore everything else. Just focusing on the next 5 years ahead of you instead of just looking at the mountain peak. And then the test day came, and I had to go. I remember I was in the Prometric parking lot, and I was like flipping through my biology notes, and I was like convincing myself I knew nothing. I was like flipping through it, and I was like seeing these words, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna fail this. What are you doing? Let's turn around right now. And I was like, I followed the schedule. I did everything. I checked everything off. Like, I should be ready. This covers everything. And then I went there. I sat down, and they give you like a 15-minute tutorial. And I remember like I just like sat there and like closed my eyes and like breathed for like 15 minutes. I didn't really check out the tutorial. I was just like trying to like calm down. I started going through the test, and there's like, still some questions I still had no idea like what they meant. But then I got to the end. They like ask you like a survey, and I remember thinking, I was like, I feel like I gave this my best shot. I was like, whatever this is, like I'm gonna have to take it. I'm gonna have to hope it's good enough to get into dental school. And you're just taking the survey, and they don't tell you this, but like as soon as you are done taking the survey, your scores like pop up on the screen. There's no like loading time or anything. There's no spinning thing saying like loading your scores. And I thought it was like a sample report. And I remember like, I saw my name on it, and it was like 25, and I was like 99.9%. They used to give percentiles back then. And I remember like, I felt this like extreme feeling of like I don't know, like I said, like it's a combination of like euphoria and like proudness. I was like, oh my god, I did that. I was like, I remember like feeling that like this was like such an overwhelming, like there was like no way I can do this, and I put my mind to it. I followed like a study schedule, and I did well. And like whereas like anybody else who like would look at this piece of paper and be like, they just see a number, they just see like 25.
Yeah.
Like I saw it was like a ticket to like a better future at that point for me. So I remember I was looking at this, I was like, this has essentially somewhat like opened so many doors for me. Like now I can go to dental school, because if you don't do well on the test, like you have to figure something else out with your life, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very scary thought when your whole life is centered around dentistry.
Yeah.
And I felt like so happy. I was like so proud. I went and applied to a bunch of schools. I got accepted to Columbia. And then my friend asked me, it was like, hey, I have to take the test. Like, I remember you did well. Like, what did you do? And I was a chemistry TA back at UF. I really like teaching. I really like helping students understand. I felt like I had to explain the same concepts like so many times over that I feel like I kind of like gained like a unique perspective as to like how to teach someone what they need to know to be able to like answer a question like on a test. And I helped them build a study schedule very similar to the one I built. But like I remember like thinking, I was like, but you really shouldn't use this because like the questions weren't like that good. And I was like and he was like, what should I use? And I was like, there's really nothing out there that was like it. I remember thinking, I was like, well, I could just use the chemistry questions I already wrote for like those quizzes and exams I'm writing for the undergrad students.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I could just like build one of the, and he really liked it. He was like, wow, these were really helpful. Thank you so much. And I think it was for like stoichiometry or something. And someone else asked me, because he said like, Ari really helped me with the test, and I helped that person. And eventually I got the idea. I was like, maybe you should just put all these on a website. These like DAT questions that I'm writing. So that's how DAT question of the day got started. Where it was just like every day I would post like one question. You can put in your email, we'll send you one question, and students across the country started signing up for it. They really liked the help and the practice that they were receiving. I would just like try to like help people online on SDN, help them with their study schedules. And eventually we had like so many questions stored on a DAT question of the day. I was like, there has to be like a better way to like be using these things. And I was like, what if you like put all these together into like practice tests? So that would be really helpful. You kind of like simulate what the test is going to be like. Maybe we can like estimate your score. And it's like a better way to like test the questions instead of just doing it like one at a time, like one day at a time. So then that's how DAT Bootcamp got started. And it all started from like the very beginning, that like I wanted to help people achieve that feeling I had when I finished the test and I did well. And like, I felt that euphoria that like, oh my God, like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. All these doors have opened. Like, my future is like, there's a very high chance that I'm going to become a dentist now. It's such an inspiring and incredible feeling. And I just absolutely love sharing it with other people. So the entire premise of everything we do, like the goals that we set, it's all to help students like do well on the test. Because I remember, and everybody else on the team too, they've all taken the DAT, remembers that feeling very well. And like every time we hear like another student do well, or we hear you guys, saying like, thank you so much for helping us on that test. Like it absolutely like makes our day. Like this is like what we live for. And so every year we try to make it like a little better. And here we are today.
So yeah, we just heard from Ari, and some of the takeaways that I had from listening to that was just like how relatable it was when he was talking about him being in the parking lot and kind of freaking out about how important the next couple hours were going to be for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Right? Because we started this video off talking about how important the DAT is and how it's like probably the most important part of our application. And it's true. And we put so much time and effort into planning, studying. Like this is the time where all of the effort and work that we've like put up to this is kind of like push comes to shove.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And it's like, it's funny now looking back because we can relate really well to what Ari was going through because all of us went through that. But for pre-dental students, like you will soon be in that point too. And things are going to come out better than you expect. right? If you put in the time, if you put in the effort, if you have the resources,
You've done the practice tests.
you're gonna do well, and then you are gonna look back on listening to Ari's experience, and you're gonna smile because it's the same thing. It's like us all sitting in the Prometric Testing Center parking lot,
Right.
going over flashcards that we don't even remember when we click start of the test, thinking that's gonna save us.
It just makes you feel better
It
inside.
does. It does.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed that, and we're grateful for Ari talking and giving the time to us to kind of talk to us about why he came up with DAT Bootcamp, and really boils down to his experience studying and preparing for the DAT and the like emotions that he felt walking out after the exam and doing so well, because really that opens the doors for the rest of your future as a dentist.
The key. And because of that, like, we don't say this because we want you to feel intimidated by the DAT. Quite the opposite. I think if you have put together this plan, you've kept to it, and you're able to see your scores on these practice tests, you'll know when you're ready. The DAT, you don't want to retake it, right? So just put in the work, do what you got to do, and you'll know when you're ready. So
just to add to that, I will say if you do have to retake it, it's not the end of the world.
Correct.
Don't give up just because you have to retake it once or twice.
It happens.
That's very common for people to have to go back and do that again.
Cool. All right. Anything else, guys, or are we good?
No, I think that's it. And best of luck for studying and using the resources that are given. So,
all right.